This is Dan Dix here reporting for Press for Truth. We're here in Paso Robles, California for a Freedom Force International event. And I'm joined by John Sneisen of World Alternative Media. Now, John, last time we were talking, we did a video about 5G, and it pretty much went viral. It's getting nearly 500,000 views in, just a few weeks. And
get the word out, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, in that video, we were getting the word out about the technical aspects of 5G, really breaking it down. This time, as a follow-up, I want to get into more of the what this is going to look like in the real world. How is this? How and why is this physically going to roll out? So, what is the 5G world going to look like, as opposed to the the technology itself?
Well, how they want to have it implemented is, of course, with basically monitoring everything. That's their goal, and that's. I was listening to a PhD. He was talking about. He was actually an economics professor, but he was talking about the importance of using the new 5G technology to then implement into the Internet of Things all different devices that could pull information from anywhere. When it comes to emissions, when it comes to usage of things. So it always is about some form of sort of control that they want to implement, and it all comes from the great data that they could pull out of these things, and then come in and limit you access to different things if you overuse it, because it's all about how bad humans are on this planet. So it's comes down to that. And when it comes to the use of it in itself, like I'm just reading the 5G white paper, and the three major things they talk about: smartphone users, which is everybody here basically that are using a phone as a smartphone user. They want to have easy and fast, like super fast access to internet for everyone. Then the second one is, of course, they're talking about autonomous devices like drones, like cars, anything that self-drives. That is the second most important thing about 5G in the implementation of it, because without, with today's system, it would be very hard to actually use self-driving cars because you're having scattered coverage and stuff on different highways. You need way tighter and way faster internet for that to work. And then the third thing is, of course, we talked about the Internet of Things, which is anything that it could be your Alexa at home. That's a huge part of the Internet of Things. It could be, of course, your cameras, everything that surrounds you. And then, of course, like with automation, there's a lot of different devices that you could attach to the power lines, to the gas lines, to anything that covers usage for an individual. And then they could, of course, they call it optimize it for individuals and limit you if you overuse too much of the energy, because we don't want anybody to actually use too much of Earth. We're destroying Earth. We're horrible human beings on this planet. So that's why we need to basically use the 5G to control people and make sure that you're not doing anything that the elites doesn't like, you using more of a resource or anything that they would allow you to do, your allowance, your resource allowance. Well,
viewers of Press for Truth are already well aware of the Orwellian nightmare that is coming. So maybe we can get into that a little bit about the surveillance state in regards to 5G. How is it that we can get people to understand there's a sinister agenda here to track, trace, and database every person on the planet?
Yeah, no, it's look at what's happening in China. We should get into China, because that's definitely what they're trying to do there. And just recently, me and Josh for World Alternative Media, we just did a video on Huawei. They're called. It's the biggest telecom infrastructure company in the world, actually. They're bigger than the Swedish counterpart Ericsson, which is the second biggest one. But what this is all about is just putting out technology that they could track and trace every single movement that you do as a human. They don't want any freedom whatsoever for any human beings to be able to have these conversations. They want to make sure that we don't have it, so we don't rebel against anybody else. That is the number one thing that they want to do with 5G, because now you can put out little devices. Like I've seen devices in my field. I work with low voltage and technology. I installed, unfortunately, surveillance cameras and alarms and all this stuff. But I also seen one new trend that's coming out is microphones. They put it in schools. They put it in public areas. They call it anti-gun, if a gunfire comes, police can know exactly where it is and they could respond. But it's like, is that exactly what it's for? Like, it was actually in Toronto just recently, they were talking about that. And what's funny is, in the Toronto Council, they actually had, just days before, remember that big terrorist attack, that guy that drove over all the
van.
That shot up the people there in Toronto. Days before that, they were talking about implementing this technology, that gunshot technology. But like just days after, this happens, and then there's like, hey, now we definitely need it. Right. So it's very interesting how and things are happening around just for pushing this agenda out to the populace.
All right. So when it comes to the populace, what can the average person out there do to mitigate this, to kind of protect themselves moving forward? I mean, if it's this global system, we're all going to be under it. It seems inescapable. But are there things people can do to minimize the risks of, the being controlled and manipulated and whatever else they might be up to?
Well, there's like today, there's very little things other than like shutting your phones off and things like that to do, because if you walk around, for example, in China, you're gonna have a detector, like cameras running software on them that will detect your feelings, your emotions, like anything. They literally trace it, so they could see like what you're like. Let's say that you're out talking to someone, right, and you have a good conversation about something, but then you talk about conspiracy, for example, and we're smiling to each other because we're like, yeah, we're exposing something, but then they're like, oh, conspiracy, he's smiling, that means that he's a bad guy, so think that
social credit.
That's the problems that get implemented into the system, is all those things get implemented. But what you can do to get out of it is you got to shut off things a lot more of this.
Unplug from the net.
Don't have your automation in your home. Yeah, it might be fantastic to have. It's so easy to turn off and on the light, but a lot of this technology will eventually be used because it's convenient now, and if it was just used for conveniency, I would be all for it. But the problem is they're talking about big data, using all this big data from all these devices to then control like what are people using, so they could limit control over it. That's what it's all about. It's not about the great conveniency of all these things. And what I found, one last thing as well that I found very interesting was I was reading a couple of white papers. There's nothing about health concerns whatsoever in there. Nothing. And when I used to work up in a cell phone tower, you shut down that tower and you go up there and then you fix it. You don't have it on when you're up there. You get fried by the microwave energy that comes out of it. So there's like no concern about health when you like literally. Let's say that you're over in Paso Robles here, for example. You would literally have to put up these antennas on maybe at least every 40 meters, like down, in order to have the fast speeds that you want to implement with this 5G system. So you're gonna be literally walking past all these antennas, and you don't think that anything is going to happen to you. Like even with high voltage, like I feel like the radio and the energy, the magnetic frequency around all this stuff. So it can't be that healthy, can it? Like we're gonna ask these questions and go and ask questions. Especially I see that there's several places now that are coming out against it, and that's great. I think if we really want to change things, we gotta go out there and like not just fight it because it's technology out there, but more fight it for the reasons, and tell and educate people about what they want to do with these things, because that's what it's all about. It's not about like the great technology that it actually is. It's fantastic technology when you think about it, but the problem is these elites up there. Like we need to educate people about the elites and how terrible these people are, and what their goals are with the rollout of these technologies.
Exactly, folks. What we need to do is unplug from the matrix. Global non-compliance is really where it's at. Someday they may force it upon us, but at this point in time, it's not being forced. So just don't accept it into your life. John, I know you guys are trying to reach 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Let us know the links just in case nobody's, if they're not subscribed yet.
Yeah, no, we're getting really close actually, and it's fun to be able to reach so many people out there. But you just go to World Alternative Media on YouTube and check out me and Josh. We're a bunch of crazy guys talking about economics, money, money and technology sometimes. So yeah, we just want to educate the populace about getting out there and questioning a lot more than they do today, because if you don't, and if you don't come after and expose all these people that have all these ideas to enslave us, we're going to be slaves. But we can use a lot of the same technologies to completely free ourselves.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's what we got to do.
Absolutely true. Guys, check the links in the description if you want to learn more from John Sneisen of World Alternative Media. Once again, man, thanks for talking to us.
You're welcome, and always a pleasure, Dan.
We all want truth. The truth will set you free.